Hi everyone, welcome to Show Studio. We are in the midst of New York Fashion Week, and today we're going to be talking about Telfar, and we're going to be looking at wider topics such as gender neutrality and his new win at the CFDA award. But before we dive into our fabulous panel, I'll let our fabulous panelists introduce themselves, starting with the very fabulous Dino.
Hello, I'm Dino Bonacic.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. I'm Essie. I'm the designer behind 40 Label.
Hi, I'm Jake, and I am a writer.
I'm Lara Johnson-Wheeler. I'm features editor here at Show Studio.
And I'm Georgie. I'm fashion editor at Show Studio. So I had intended to dive in on another question, but before we started, we were chatting about the CFDA's new award, which is recognising non-binary. And so before we talk about Telfar, let's just talk a little bit about that. Jake, I'm going to jump straight to you because you are the knower of all. Tell me everything.
No, I just feel like non-binary is like an identification. Like you don't identify with either male or female, and clothing doesn't identify. Like, and it's just like unisex fashion. It really kind of summed it up to me when Selfridges did the agender project. Yeah. All it means is just reshuffling your shop floor. Like we all wear unisex fashion. So it's just like it seems, and the Instagram caption was like, buzzy designers, and it's just, I feel a bit weird about it.
Feels like quite a strange thing to do when the idea is, you know, that labels are being redefined to then suddenly, you know, enhance this sense of definition and like put that in a separate category.
You're labeling something that's meant to be labelless.
Exactly.
But that's like, there's a huge...
My point, but better said.
No, but I think there's a huge thing, like socially, that it's always trying to like categorize everything, whether it's, you know, like sexuality, where you have like gay, straight, and then the only other thing is being bisexual, and in the middle. So the only other thing is womenswear, menswear, and then unisex. There's like, you know, there's like a whole spectrum here that is not represented by the New York Fashion Week, and now by introducing this whole thing, like, oh, okay, like, so there's a lot of people that are now celebrating the idea of unisex. Let's create a new category of designers and then put the hypey designers, so like if Vaquera, if Telfar, Ecoslata, Chromat, those are all like kind of the coolest things that are happening right now in New York, and kind of saying that being binary is also, being non-binary, and unisex is also equals to being cool. It's a bit problematic, but then like, not just a bit, like quite a lot. Yeah, I don't know, like I think it's an interesting thing that like, why is there a need even to bring in a category?
It feels like a strange move, and it would just logistically, you know, if one of the issues with the seasons is that menswear and womenswear are kind of overlapping more and people are showing in these different seasons, if their answer to that is to create a new
And you already have
that doesn't
co-ed
seem to make
runways.
sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like co-ed runways are already a thing. Like we're already kind of shifting away from menswear and womenswear.
Surely the thing to do would be to remove menswear and womenswear and just make it fashion week.
But this is America though. Like this is New York. We have to remember that this is like the most commercial market.
I think that's why they've done this thing in itself. But my feeling with it is that it kind of takes away from the giving of the award in the first place. Like the fact that Telfar, who's a unisex brand and is pushing all these amazing boundaries, wins this award off with no other wider context, just purely because they are a great designer. To then win it under this unisex, non-binary thing.
I actually think it's not an award.
I think it's just a category
of fashion week.
Got it.
So like in between the menswear and womenswear, they put this as in like on their calendar, so you can like search on the CFDA, like, oh, who are the unisex? Who are
But
the
at the same time, it's
non-binary?
clearly no coincidence that, you know,
Absolutely,
Telfar just won, and therefore the follow-on effect is that this has happened.
Yeah.
Also, Telfar's been doing it since like 2005. Like
Yeah.
it's not.
Always saying this, and Dino just interviewed him. I'm sure he's
But that's the thing. Like I think it's what I talked to him about is like why, for example, we touched upon a subject of like why is like now sportswear to what like casual wear and like all of that he's been doing like since 2005. It was always about movement. It was always about using like cotton. It was always about using these like familiar sportswear codes into like a new twisted like subversive way. Now that like
No, I wanted to ask a question.
No, but I want like.
Is he a bit bitter about that?
No, not at all. Like he just basically said that like when I asked him like why do you think now fashion is that? And now, you know, like I asked like so basically fashion is now being like celebratory of being like different, of being like non-binary, being unisex is something that's so normal now, which is great. And also like the sportswear element. And he was like, well, it just seems like people now like to be free. They like to be able to move and they like to be comfortable. And that's what he said, and which I think is really amazing, because it's kind of like he doesn't take credit for like inventing something. He just said, like, it's his moment now, which is, sad that he hasn't been recognized for 13 years and you have to wait for all that time for him to like come on the scene finally and be accepted by everyone. But it's also like, look, like he's now in this very moment, he won $400,000 and he's like gonna use it to create a business and, pave the way for other brands that probably would not be able to succeed if Telfar didn't win the CFDA. And maybe in 10 years, he will be recognized for that.
I feel like he is leading the way a little bit, because there's quite a lot of like incestuous moving around in New York, like Eckaslata, Vaquera, Telfar. A lot of the interns for various companies have worked for different companies. So 2 of the interns from Eckas, I think, have worked under Telfar, who are now doing Vaquera. I think 2 of the ones from Vaquera it's all very incestuous. So I feel like even though it's taken so long for Telfar to finally get the award, he has been helping everything push in this new direction this whole time. So it's not fruitless.
Well,
I think
Essie
it feels. Essie, tell me everything.
So no, I think with Telfar, you're saying like, it's taken him a long time, but I think it's all about timing. And I feel like this kind of actually works for him. Actually, this kind of like process and this kind of growth, and again, like people working for him, and then now they're kind of going up like amongst him at the same time. Like I think it all works out. Telfar's a great guy. He's a really humble guy, and I think it shows through his approach to fashion and his approach to, basic fashion. Like he wants to create essentials that are not essential in a way. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think that's really unique, and I think it's underestimated a lot. And I think, as well with this movement of like sexuality and trying to kind of finally accepting who you are, or who. I think he's creating that uniform for that person. Do you know what I mean? Like that new uniform for that person that's finally, okay, I can be myself. I can,
He's also doing uniforms.
Exactly, literally uniforms. So that's,
and he
that
said
really
about
works.
that, the White Castle thing, he said that he wanted to make a uniform that the person who is, so he did the White Castle, which is the fast food chain, obviously, and he said he wanted to make a uniform that the person who is ordering would wear, as well as the person who is delivering, and then they'd like meet and both be wearing the same thing, and they'd love that. I thought that was quite sweet.
Yeah, it's like a level playing ground.
Yeah.
It's like all the same, but different.
I want to ask you about, do you feel like he had a different approach to design to anyone else? Or to you even, obviously, or womenswear?
Yeah, I think he definitely does. I think he stands out in a way that it's not meant to stand out. It's just all kind of contradictions, and I myself as a designer feel like I play on contradictions as well. I think that's why we kind of blend, like we work well together. But yeah, he's all, even though we're so different, but yeah, I think he just always plays on like contradictions, like, it's meant to be basics that you wear every day. He wanted to create like basically like Walmart clothes, you know what I mean? Like really basic stuff, but it's not, it's so elevated. It's so every little detail. Like I would just look through his rails sometimes and be like, okay, this collar does this. Okay, this lapel does that. Oh, these jeans, like,
technical.
Very technical, and people underestimate that. And I think it's, it's great that he's now getting acknowledged for that.
I've seen one of the pieces up close, but what's that like, the way that they're made, is it?
It's just like the littlest details you wouldn't think of in the most ironic way.
Subversive.
Yeah.
So sexy. His clothes are so sexual.
Really.
And I think like that's the whole thing, where outside the idea of like it being cool, it's actually well-made clothes that are really easy to wear and comfortable, genuinely are, because they're made out of cotton, they're made out of these, like, they're in these silhouettes, and they're so sexy. They celebrate like sexuality in a way that like you don't see in London. I know we have like people like Charles Jeffrey who are very like pro, kind of celebrate your queerness, your being different, but this is kind of like, it's Telfar does wants to make people still feel pretty, feel sexy, feel hot,
definitely,
which is such a rare thing, especially with like queer kind of queer themed fashion, where it's like usually it's all about making yourself ugly. It's about making just different and like being extreme in so many ways. And Telfar is not that.
So
he wants to make. I mean, this show, if we look at it, it's like beautiful clothes. The guys look hot. The girls look hot. Like everyone is just like.
Hot.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think it's like Telfar, when you see his interviews and stuff, when he talks about like not thinking in terms of binaries, he thinks about fashion horizontally, and I just think his ideology and his approach to like design and fashion is extremely queer. Like he kind of like, he wants to disrupt that kind of like male and female, and high and low, and he said that those things just like don't exist to him. So he definitely does something really subversive, but in quite a like intellectual way, I think.
I agree.
It's interesting though, because I think the garments, when you look at them, if you look at them in images, don't necessarily look as obviously subversive as something like, I want to draw the comparison a bit with Ekhaslater, because I think what they do is very much this idea that you're talking about with sort of comfortable sexiness. They use these sort of very soft fabrics, but they're quite obviously.
I think they're also quite like awkward. They like there's like with Ekhaslater, there's this.
These are a bit more
like
slick.
you know, like they want to make stuff that's like way too tight, so it looks like it's puckering and like it looks like it's you're about to burst out of these trousers, which comes from their own kind of aesthetic and personality. But with Telfar, and I'm sure it has to do with where he comes from, like. As I talked to him, like how did he start designing and how did he start his brand? He basically started a brand because his parents would not let him wear women's wear because that was just not okay. So he decided to make his own world where he can make, like a men's t-shirt that is going to be tight as a women's and like and have a cutout on a shoulder or something like that, which is incredible. But like I think giving this person like $400,000 to like start a business, and then him having such guts to go into New York Fashion Week like a few months after winning and presenting 11 or 12 looks is so ballsy.
He is quite ballsy though. That nude picture of him that's on display in Milan at the moment is like A, gorgeous, but B, it's so like everything I'm going to say is so naff, but like so like unapologetic, this is me. It's like huge.
It's like a whole wall I saw on Instagram.
Yeah, and I feel like everything about in the Telfar DNA is very unapologetic, like confident. This is me. If you wear this, you can embody, like your confidence comes out, whatever confidence that is.
Yeah, I do feel like it comes down to his experience as well, because it's like he's been consistently following his instincts and doing what feels natural to him. And then I just think if you do have like, because he has quite a singular vision, and it kind of like, it's quite nuanced and it develops, but I think you can definitely tell what is a Telfar piece. And I think bravery has kind of paid off for him, like sticking to that vision, and then it's almost like fashion caught up. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely,
I think that speaks volumes to his brand. I feel like he's like that story just told me about how he couldn't wear women's wear, so he made his own line of clothes. He made his own lane. Do you know what I mean? Like that speaks volumes to his aesthetic, his style, his whole branding, everything is Telfar. He's created his own world, and we all want we're supposed to want a little bit of it, you know what I mean? And I think that really speaks volumes, and that's probably why he won that award, because it's so standalone. Even amongst the Ekhaslatas and all that, I think he really has kind of nailed this kind of non-binary, I guess, fashion. And I think it's still sexy, and you have like a polo shirt that's like a Ralph Lauren polo, but it's like this kind of exposed shoulder. And that's really sexy. It's just tight, it's like fits nicely, it's comfortable, it's not like a corset, you know what I mean? It's not like a bra, it's just like, just very sexy, subtle details. So it's, it appeals to women, it appeals to men, it appeals to whoever, you know what I mean?
Everyone in between.
Exactly.
I think what is really incredible, it is like we have to like acknowledge that like CFDA award, which is usually like CFD Vogue Fashion Fund, which is usually saved for like very same kind of designers. It's always when it's a specific award that like when you see people that are nominated on a yearly
it feels very New York.
It's very New York. It's very like fashion, Altuzara, Princess Cooler. You have these like very kind of like and having a black gay man whose designs are celebrating gayness. They're not just about a gay man designing dresses for women or like cool heels. No, it's like a gay man like celebrating like that was a Paul Andrew shade, but no, but it was like it's an idea that goes beyond just like being gay. It's actually celebrating that, and him winning this award coming from like a stuffy publication like American Vogue and like Anna Wintour. It's like incredible. It's hopefully it's not just like one-off. Hopefully that will be celebrated, and I wish like maybe fashion awards in UK start taking that direction a bit more.
I want to talk a little bit about the awards, because some people talk about the LVMH as the kiss of death, and sometimes that can be once you get that and it's all this and it's fuss, and then you get the money and then
the hype and
Are we a bit worried that that's going to happen in this case?
I don't think so, just because I think it's a really big feat. We cannot ignore the fact that this is a black man, a black queer man who has won this award on such a high scale. I think this is completely something that is admirable and is going to really spark something, especially in the black community. There's so many, I was at like a Central St. Martin's like talk, I think it was like Reba Maybury and stuff. And she was like, everybody named, it was like a bunch of us, it was a lot of us, like everybody named like a black designer, and like people were struggling, like to find a woman of color or a man of color who's got them. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, this is kind of different, I feel, just because it's just there's so much more to it. It means so much more to someone like me as well. It means a lot. So I think this is I don't think this is kiss of death. I think, as well as the fact that he kind of did something non-traditional for the next show, he didn't carry that on to be like, okay, so let me do this big production. Finally I have exactly. It wasn't that. So he's gonna stick to his guns regardless. So
the thing is as well, like I feel like how we're talking about like non-binary fashion, when actually you want to talk about dissolving that binary between menswear and womenswear. I feel like because his clothing does that in like quite a subtle way, I feel like it doesn't have that kind of shock factor which can make you almost like a trend. Because I feel like sometimes it's like it's such a radical thing that it's like, ooh, and then people get bored and people move on. But I think because like he's been so consistent, I think it's one of those things that is long term how we do kind of like dissolve that binary a little bit and queer it.
And also perhaps because he's not a young designer. He's had the brand for so many years. It's not that with this suddenly it's just you've given it to someone who doesn't know how to continue their brand. It is continuing. I think that'll have a different effect.
Yeah,
he's basically turning into a business, and I think like that's what he told me. Like he was like, now I can finally make a business that I always have been wanting to do and planning to do. But I think in terms of like it like kind of evaporating, I think the thing what you said is exactly that. Like he represents so many communities that have been like not represented in any sense. So like it's not the same as just a jewelry designer winning a CFD, or like the elder statesman who is also he's a black designer, but his vibe was like LA, California. It was like Kashmir. It's a very different thing, and there is kind of like I feel like a sense of hype with the elder statesman that is not like it's kind of stopped. It kind of like is fading a little bit away, even though I think it's incredible workmanship and all of that. But then like I think with him, he's celebrating all of his communities. He is about the community. That's what he does. Like that's what he's been doing since the beginning. It's about celebrating who you are, where you come from. He's as I said, like a gay black man from Queens that worked with White Castle from his like beginnings, and then he made uniforms for them. It's all about nurturing that for 13 years and more. So like I think it's definitely there's no way, and I hope there's like that he will use this money to like elevate that.
And just touching on the White Castle thing as well. You said, George, before we went live, you were saying about the fact that Telfar, when he does things, he always does them for himself, and there's always this personal sort of feeling, and everything comes back to him. And with the White Castle collaboration, he was supported by them because they were a company that he felt very close to and connected to and lived opposite. And I think when you bring that something in, there is this feeling of authenticity that something like winning a big award like that can't kill.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I feel like Telfar, sorry.
No, go.
I feel like Telfar, because he creates these uniforms and literal uniforms, it's kind of like he wants to be mundane, he wants to be like regular, but like not. It's like he wants to be in like a Walmart, or he wants to be, do you know what I mean? He wants to create like this kind of basic essential, which in itself is actually quite a big feat, like to create an essential, to create your new basic t-shirt or your new basic jean. He wants to create an essential, and I feel like that will also help him kind of keep consistent and
I feel like the uniform thing's really smart. To me it feels like by infiltrating these uniforms into everyone's kind of everyday, he's kind of like seeding this like amazing, like it's a little bit of queer into something that you would never normally see. And it's
uniforms are so tied to class, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's kind of just
like work in White Castle. Like they're not necessarily of like high. Like they would not they probably don't even know who Telfar is, which is the incredible part. Where he creates a piece of clothing that like you know, people from like urban areas that like do not know anything about fashion, maybe, like they're wearing it.
Yeah.
If he can go into White Castle in Queens and see like a young guy that's like 20 years old, maybe like homophobic and straight, wearing.
But that's what I love. It's like there'd be like, there could be like a racist, homophobic guy walk into White Castle, buy the T-shirt, and not have any idea about what he's buying into.
There's also the intention behind, you know, so all the profits from that collaboration, as we were saying before, went to Rikers Island, to the miners who are being held, who couldn't afford bail, and it's like $900 to release someone from bail. And there is that also this idea of just, you know, small community projects as well on a big scale. That's quite amazing, and gives. I mean, I know it's not done for this purpose, but it does also enhance that sense of authenticity for a brand. And like that's it feels a bit nasty to be sitting on a panel and saying that about someone when that's such an amazing thing to do, but it does have that.
But it's so crucial now because I feel like we've seen activism co-opted by so many designers that people are like a lot more critical of like where the funds are going.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not just some dude creating like
T-shirts.
500 pounds. And like I could say a lot about this, but no.
No, but it's true. It's an incredible thing. Like
redirect the funds back. Like you're actually genuinely helping people as opposed to just making your brand
and
look
I feel
good.
like it links to his race as well, you know. Rikers Island is infamous for throwing all kinds of young black men in jail for no reason, or just reasons that they can come up with and stuff like that. I feel like it's also linked to his race as well. And for me, it's the most genuine way he could have done it is to do it through that rather than, you know, make a T-shirt with a logo and some of the proceeds go to, and it's just like...
Also, like, it's a subtle nod and a subtle way of drawing attention to the fact that that's an issue. Like us having this panel here in London, in Show Studio, discussing even that issue. I don't know, I think there's something quite amazing about the ability that he's had to have that reach.
Yeah.
I'm always really interested in the fact that he is so, it feels very Americana in everything he does.
Extremely.
Even though when I think of Americana, I think of police brutality and like slightly negative connotations.
A different type of Americana.
A different type of Americana, yes. But he's worked with American Apparel and White Castle, and that all feels very American. And I feel like you're definitely right when you say that that's kind of a little, I see what you did. I'm like, I see what you're doing, and I'm coming for you.
Yeah, because most brands, they kind of collaborate with, like, say, McDonald's, it would look like, girl, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, ooh, what you doing? Like, I know the money's good, but hey, you know, don't compromise but this really works. Do you know what I mean? It's not a compromise, it's just like kind of like a extension, and it's part of who he is, and it's part of like his culture.
And because then people do question those links, so you look at like America, you look at the proceeds going to Rikers, and then you kind of do like say the links together, and you do have like a conversation about the disproportionate criminalization of predominantly, especially in America, young black men. So it's like it does kind of like shine a light on these kind of wider political issues without it being like without it seeming forced or contrived.
Yeah. But that's another thing, is he's genuinely so much of a joyous. I mean, you can tell me because you interviewed him, and you know him. Yeah. But it feels like he's such a joyous person.
He's
such a party animal.
That's the thing. Like I think that's one thing that we didn't maybe touch upon yet is that what was the show last night at 2 a.m. in New York. It was a show that was about like being like partying, and for him, like
living life.
Their after parties at White Castle, at the like Times Square White Castle, which unfortunately closed. Like those are like still remembered in those circles, and I'm sure Finn.
Shout out to Finn.
Special honorary mention because I'm sure he's like hating that he's in New York and he can't be here. But like I'm sure that he was at those parties, and those are like, you know, like celebration of all of that and celebration. And he loves going out. He said, oh, I love parties that started I love going out at 2, 3 a.m. and go until the morning.
That's just so amazing.
And that's like the type of person that I guess he is. He's a person that like, you know, loves life, like loves partying, loves being comfortable, partying, and like loves to kind of put all of that into
why I
his
think
brand.
this whole us talking about slightly political angle is so smart, because if you just looked up at Telfar surface level, you've met him, you engage with him, or you watched an interview, he is so fun, he's so party, and then you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, oh, hang on a second, let's see what you're doing.
Exactly. Serious onion.
Serious onion.
It's like you were saying though, isn't it? Like just the lack of black designers makes his existence and his success kind of political by default, because it's like it is such a massive talking point. But also kind of not really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like a weird dichotomy.
He's so smart. Let's look at the party. The party show. The party show.
I feel like we're a
It's a
tackler
concert.
now.
The concert.
What happened at last night's party? What food did they have?
So Telfar decided for this show that he would do a concert. So everyone was kind of sat in the round, and there's like a stage, and one by one, a different musician would come up, all kitted out in the latest Telfar looks. And
Dev Hines opened
Dev Hines is on the piano.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that there's...
God, Dino, I knew you were going to cry.
God, no.
Seriously, keep it together.
The idea is that they are slightly underground musicians. That I'm sure he could have got Solange if he wanted to, but they're slightly...
I think it was about being queer as well.
It's about being queer, yes, certainly. So what do we think about presenting in this different manner?
I see you looking at me. I see that.
Lara?
I'd like to hear it. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, and I hate to be the first negative voice on this panel.
Negative Nancy?
Yeah, negative Nancy, but I find it really difficult to watch a concert like this. Like, I think maybe also I have to give some context. I did watch the show on Instagram on my phone in the morning, and just like, I can imagine that there's a real feeling of, there's a lovely feeling when you're there, and you can get that sense, but having it through my shit broken iPhone speaker and like seeing that, I had to switch, and I have to be honest, it felt a little bit cringe. And I can feel Finn McTaggart watching and being like, I'm going to kill her. But I have to be honest, I did feel a bit like that. And I think that I kind of hate that feeling, because I think what he's doing is so genuine, and so then for me to just dismiss it as being like that was a bit cringe is a bit sad. But I think maybe that's more of a critique of the way that you have to watch a show like this, and it's obvious that
the way it was represented digitally.
Yeah, the way it was represented
digitally,
you can't, and another thing that I have to say is, we can't really see the looks with these images, and obviously he's not curating his show for this purpose. We were saying that, like, this coverage is not why he's doing it. He's trying to create this atmosphere and show something and showcase something beautiful, but it's difficult to feel that and sense that looking at it like this. And often there is something really amazing about watching a show digitally, but it doesn't come through here.
We want to know what song they sang.
Oh, we know. It's amazing. So we have a little clip, but it'll be quite fuzzy, so sorry everyone. But basically, I think it's written specially for this. And it was like something about showing your heart and bringing your heart and grateful for everything.
So it's basically like The Voice.
It was
in Queen.
It was played in the round.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah, here you go. I don't know if you can hear it.
I don't know if you can hear.
Oh, they took us to church.
So I know.
So like reality
Telfar
TV.
Baptist choir.
So they sang in the round. So one of them would sing one thing, and then they'd loop back, but they would always end with being like,
this is a church performance.
"It's Telfar." Yeah, it was great.
Baptist choir.
But there's Kalila just
Killing it in the corner there.
I love that she was there.
It's quite amazing seeing them all together.
Walter.
When they each come out one by one.
And here's Telfar.
And then he comes on, yeah.
Wait, he does a really good line, if we can hear it.
Love that coach.
So he's saying, I'm so grateful, and then he says, I'm so grateful for my customers.
It is very, you know what I mean? I think also, in a way, I feel like this is very subversive. I think this, I don't know the reference, but for me, it does give me like a very like The Voice vibe, which like kind of group performance, but like in a subversive way. And I feel like maybe that's something that you
feel
said,
a little bit
you're
bad
cringe,
now.
like, you're cringing because it's a bit awkward and stuff.
I think maybe
I feel
watching,
like
maybe it was FOMO. Maybe I was just having severe.
I feel like it's like
Now watching this, like, yeah, everyone's having such a great time.
Yeah.
Like, I
You are
wasn't.
right in the sense that, like,
I wasn't.
I was like,
it's the way that we consume these things, and it's like through Instagram it does get diluted, but I also think this is like the queerest possible thing he could have done.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you get the CFDA award, there is that kind of like expectation to like be super commercial.
Yeah.
And he's literally made it impossible for like photographers to get a decent shot of the outfits.
I love that though.
Yeah, me too. Like he's
Me,
just
I feel like this is so black. Like it's like a church vibe. They're getting like into the spirit right now. Like nothing is formal.
Look at that,
Everyone's
that's
just doing their thing.
if we just actually look at the clothes as well, everyone is moving in the
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah.
Like, really,
Yeah, they're living in
They're
them.
really free.
Yeah.
They are.
I almost think that's better than a static image, because now I know, and also they're all different body types, so I can look and be like, that looks great on her, but that looks great there.
And they're genuinely friends, you know, these people, you know?
It's almost like street casting, isn't it?
It's just like street casting.
You make it...
Except cooler, because they're amazing music.
Street casting, I think
It's not street casting Kalela,
Come through to the show.
Walter Pierce, who runs Midland Agency, who does the casting for Telfar and
Yeah.
he's there. He's the guy in the white shirt. Yeah.
It's like how you were saying though, how it is also community-based, and also he's used that fund and that platform to spotlight black artists. Like he's put on his friends. It's like, I think that's
It's good, isn't it?
It's very good.
I think it's so smart.
Get rid of the vibes.
I can honestly, Dino, I'm picturing you on the train back to Dorset, watching and crying.
I'm the front row and being like, yes, can I be your friend, please?
I know it's quite difficult to see, but let's try and unpick the clothes a little bit.
I love the look that's like the kind of like spaghetti strap dress, but like turned on its side.
Oh, I love it.
Like womenswear. That's the girl that like he went at the CFDA award when like people like wore the look. Like one of the girls wore that kind of like, which is like a spaghetti, like a side.
It was like Philip Marley, right? I think.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so gorgeous.
I think the red.
And so there's a lot of red we're noticing.
I'm seeing a lot of Cisco vibes. Like the open shirt, like the satin, the leather. Yeah, exactly.
The diamond bench.
That coat was amazing.
I love that coat.
Not now. Not now.
Well, you can't show us the show.
Dial the Cisco down, you
He wants
two.
us to do. He wants us to get hype, you know, go to church.
No, I want to sing along.
I'm loving this Walter.
Yeah,
This is amazing. So I can't figure out if this black vest is backless or if it's built into the jumper.
I love how the gloves are built in as
Telfar's
well.
probably
Yeah.
Bolton or something.
We do that thing where you bite a hole in your jumper so you can like put your fingers through.
Yeah.
And there's loads of textures, lots of leathers.
But that's like the sex appeal of like a black open shirt that like Alton
Yeah.
Mason is wearing, the look number
It's
7.
very 90s.
It's like so, and like the whole idea of his like
That's
logo,
amazing.
which is he's been putting on clothes since forever.
Forever,
It was like it was more of a reference to him like to sportswear, as in like original kind of like Adidas stuff and all of that, and like this belt that is kind of like referential of like the Gucci belt and all of that, but it's so kind of like it's so good.
I love that logo, and he has it on earrings, and he has it on those amazing leather bags. Because he said that he
like
quite
shopper bags.
Yeah, he said that he'd quite like to be the next Michael Kors.
Yeah.
And I think that's so amazing.
I have never heard that.
Can you imagine his like also the bags and the belts and everything? That could like watches. That could be Michael
That's
Kors.
what he wants. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Also, that's still back to this like crazy Americana.
It's
like,
also such an unusual aspiration.
Yeah, of all the different
I want to be Michael Kors.
Well, he wants to have a business, and he wants to have like a successful business.
very
and
business savvy.
If you can say anything about Michael Kors, he
a businessman.
does have an amazing business.
and a great accessories line. That
Yeah,
sells very
yeah,
well.
exactly.
making money. So I mean,
The interesting thing is that there's like literal deconstruction, and it kind of reminds me of like the old com collections where you would just have to like figure out where to put your head.
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
where to
Loads of
put it on.
buttons.
You can imagine if someone bought a piece who like didn't know how to style it, they'd be like putting their arm.
Yeah, you'd be like,
wrong, and like that arm.
But maybe that would work. You don't know.
The trousers are really beautiful as well. But I feel like, when it comes to accessories, that's something that like an award like the CFDA award
really help
enables.
with.
I think that's what happened with Marquez Almeida when they won the LVMH. They started they were like doing like 50 shoes, 50 bags, like every look had its own kind of, and they went into that direction, which is I think for them was kind of a success. And
Yeah, really,
stuff.
definitely.
Yeah.
And then the people could buy into that.
Exactly.
So that they really broadened their
And
market.
like bags and stuff. So I think that's what I feel like he is going towards, and I hope he is, because, everyone needs a piece of Telfar. Maybe not everyone can afford a pair of like red leather trousers, even though I would love to. I know. But it's it's cool. It's like this slits. It's so it's so sexual. It's
But on that note, who is buying Telfar? Who is buying Telfar?
Well, the problem is, you could not buy so much of those clothes, anywhere. He has an e-com, on his website, he has, an e-com part of it. But the, offering there is quite, basic, so it was,
Also,
a
I
lot
looked
about
this morning and
t-shirts
everything
stuff.
sold out.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
He does not, I think that's all from before, Vogue
CFDA.
Fashion Fund. This is now where we see, okay, probably there's way more buyers at this, show than any of his other
I was going to
presentations.
ask, who do we think is there? Because you can't really see, but I think I heard from sources on the ground that actually it was really difficult to get into. There was a lot of there weren't very many PRs helping, and there was a bit of difficulty at the show itself. So I'd be quite interested to kind of hear from people who actually were there what it was like. Again, we can see this on social media and we can like see these images, but we don't really know who was there, what people were doing, and like particularly with our time difference across the pond, like it is hard to tell what was actually going on.
Yeah.
I like the idea that it was like a concert more than a show, in that you would turn up with your ticket, you have to file in, shuffle in, try and find a good seat because it's all standing, there's no hierarchy.
And also that ties into what I was saying about like how this feels like the queerest thing it could have been, because it's like everyone just looks like they're having like an absolutely banging time. It doesn't look like a...
You want to be a part of this, you know?
Yeah, like
you want to be
Do you think were
there, you
people
want to join in with this
standing around the
microphone,
stage?
like,
Yeah, they are.
come through the crowd,
So
like...
everyone's so the crowd are like standing around the stage, like it's not seated. That is really that's really
Moving
great.
that hierarchy is also really good, because it's just like, you're just here to be a part of it. You're just here to enjoy and just, you know, enjoy the performance, maybe not even the clothes, you know?
I like the moment when he comes through the crowd.
Yeah.
They all do. It's like a slow burn of release, and then Telfar comes out at the end, which I just
Finale.
very good.
This is that whole fashion hierarchy thing, isn't it, as well? Like the front row seat and like,
Yeah.
is that whole thing.
Demolishing that.
I love the idea of like someone's very important stood at the back with their phone, trying desperately to get. Trying desperately. I am interested in what you said about this feeling very queer, because to me, all these different looks kind of feel like a slice of queer from different decades almost. Like there's some 70s queer, there's some 90s queer to me.
Different eras of queer.
Yeah. Queerers. And I feel
No. No.
The thing is, the interesting
No, for hashtag queer. Like, no.
I feel like you have a lot. I see like a lot of references to different kind of musical genres.
Yeah, that's what I see.
It's like you have like the denim and the bling, and you also have like the leather, and I just feel like it's kind of queering all those stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's taken.
For me, it's giving me Cisco, it's giving me Genuine, it's giving me
Genuine.
these like boy bands back in the days, you know, like 112 and all that. It's giving me that vibe. For me, it's like, it's queer, but for me, it's really black. It's really like African American, like what we've been through, what we've seen on the TVs, what we listen to. And for me, like as well, the church vibe, the gospel choir. You know, I know Ian can really hit them notes, so you know, I know he gave it. You know, the spirit was in him that day. You know, like he's giving you, like you know, what I mean, he's giving you all of that. He's encompassing himself in this. I feel like he's just giving you, this is Telfar. We're ready to go, even though they've been ready to go. But like, you know, what I mean, it's like it's a new chapter for him. He's referring to
Maybe it's
old
also
bits
slightly defiant of that thing, you know, the concept we were talking about earlier, that when you do get a big prize like this, it's possible to lose soul and to lose that spirit. Maybe what he's doing here is saying, no.
Like to move away from community and go to commercial.
And he's just not doing that at all.
No.
I think it's kind of a blend of what you two, like them and you were saying, because it's versus kind of like, it is very queer, but it's also very black, and black queerness is not something that's represented in like anywhere basically. Like it's so rare, it's so kind of like, it's such a specific, you know, like there was that whole thing of like how like black like rappers, they're allowed to be like have bling and all of that and be like kind of outrageous with their outfit choices and not kind of being judged for being gay, versus like which Bianca Saunders with her like collections does, another like our young RCA designer, she like questions that whole idea of masculinity in the black community and like what does it mean, like what is it okay that like Drake wear a fur coat or whatever, and this is kind of subverting that, where it takes those like Genuines and Cisco's, which are like basically, if you put that outfit on a white man, you would think, oh, this is some gay dude that's going to like a Soho club in 1995. Like, and it's true. Like, it's so kind of like, and then he's doing that, and he's kind of subverting in such a smart way where it's like sexy, but it's not necessarily, you know, like to someone who doesn't know what Telfar is, like it would not be like, oh my god, this is like loads of gay people. Yeah. Like no, it just looks like really hot clothes on really hot people.
To loop that back to our beginning point about putting this in a category, I do think, you know, saying this all, it would be a crying shame to box this in again, and it does feel like a step backwards when having a show like this on the schedule and with themes like this being raised. I just feel like that should be a universally acknowledged concept.
Yeah.
It should be best of New York Fashion Week, not best of non-binary New York fashion.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we don't need that.
Exactly.
I think it's unnecessary, to be honest. That's my opinion. I just think it is what it is. Just let it do its thing.
Yeah, let it be, and don't don't slap a new label on it.
Yeah, because that's
Almost like
separates us.
backtracking.
Yeah.
You know, you think we're going forward in a sense where, you know, like the whole, like, you know, Burberry is not showing, it's only showing 2 shows. You've got Gucci showing all the, like, together all the time. You have this, like, kind of, you know, 2 step forwards, and then you got 3 steps back if you, like, put a category onto this.
It's also just, like, it's really reductive to, like, assume that Vakira and Telfar and, like, I'm assuming, like, Gogo Graham, like, Eckhart Slaughter and all those kind of New York designers, to me, it allows for, like, a really linear reading of their work. To reduce it to nothing more than their identity, which kind of is, like, obviously it permeates everything, and like you said, it is a very black, very queer collection, but there's more to it than that. And I feel like it just kind of stops the narrative, it cuts it short at that point, and it kind of like makes it easy to box in and pigeonhole, and that's when you get queerness being like a trend or like an aesthetic.
Well, exactly a trend.
The same thing was like, I mean, not like this is so out of like, but like, Call Me by Your Name as a film was like, oh, this is a gay romantic film. No,
And
it's
it was
just
like
a
all straight
romance.
actors.
You know, exactly, and it was like, but it's like a romantic film. It's like you don't have
need to put that
that's the
prefix
thing.
in
Like,
there.
I think we need to stop doing that. Like in terms of books, like you don't need like, oh, these are gay novels or whatever. Like, yes, it's cool. Like that's fine. Like you can categorize that, and it's important to represent that and to say, like, yes, I'm gay, I'm proud, and all of that. But like, and it's also okay to say, yes, I'm straight, and I'm proud of that. But like, it's okay to have a difference. But there's no need in constantly in pop culture to categorize a gay TV show, a gay film, a gay novel, a gay or a non-binary
Because
like
the consequence
collection.
of that is segregation.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
You think you're being inclusive, but actually it's the opposite.
And also profit being taken away. Like the thing I love about Telfar is that he's won this massive award, and the profit is being funneled back into the hands of a black queer man. It's blackness and queerness, but on his own terms, and he's getting like the actual reward from it. It's when you talk about, are we just trying to make CFDA look good, or are we trying to make the fashion industry look more inclusive and more woke, when we all know that really there is still like a massive
It is big, but
there is still such a massive case of exclusion, or else you wouldn't be having these conversations. You know what I mean? It's like you were saying earlier about, if you have to name like a few black designers, it's like people struggle.
The struggle is real, and I feel like the point of Telfar is he wants to infiltrate a normal market. He wants to be a Michael Kors. Like once you slap on that term, it's like that. How can you be a Michael Kors? He just wants to, you know, be himself and put his aesthetic across, and it kind of intimidates people when you put those labels on it as well, because it's just like, oh, that's not really for me.
It means that, you know, the mass markets won't necessarily buy into that. And if you're saying there is something also intimidating about, you know, perhaps, I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure where I'm going with this point, so give me a minute. But like if you are, you know, a everyday consumer, part of the mass system, and, you know, you're being sold a designer who's part of a non-binary system, that might be an intimidating thing, that then you think, I don't belong to that category, and so I can't buy into that, which is totally not what he's trying to do.
Or you get written off as radical and exclusive. Because it is like...
Well, he's always used the term unisex, which I think
He's
is quite a good, very smart, very neutral, like not too intimidating, not necessarily
it's more
that
inclusive than...
But I think it comes from that like wish of being like, oh, like because if his parents strictly didn't allow him to buy something because it was women's wear. So it could have been like a black t-shirt, but because it was on the women's section. And there is something about that, even for me coming from Croatia, like going there and like, oh, where those trousers from? For example, somebody asked me, and I was like, oh, I bought it on the women's H&M, whatever, you know what I mean? Like something base, and they're like, oh, you know, like it's weird.
It's very like,
because it's like, you know, and even
the
though
whole context
while
has
they're on
changed.
they don't have anything to do with being women's. They don't like say we are women's trousers. No, it's like it's just a pair of striped trousers. But like people are like, oh, wait, you buy at women's department? Oh,
That's something I found a lot when researching for this, in that like all the articles from 2014 about like gender fluidity is here.
Oh, that's
oh my god! And like basically it was just women wearing more menswear clothes, and then they put menswear and womenswear show together. but that's still not unisex. That's
When
still
Zara did
not.
that was like the ultimate for me. When Zara just took like a load of blue jeans and grey hoodies and were like, unisex.
Oh, don't.
It's like those things
that.
You know, it's the same problem I think Telfar just had for me when they did their like agender. It was all like, oh, so it's beige, grey, black, white, and it's like white.
Unisex can't have colour or personality.
Unisex can't have like, oh, you can't be a slim fitted. Everything is like straight or loose fitted, or like there's nothing bodycon about anything. Like, there's agender was this kind of grey area, and I think so many like e-commerce website and retailers, they go into this idea of like gender bending as a trend, and they do this thing where they're like, oh, let's put like a Balenciaga shirt on both a guy and a girl and then style it, and then we're just gonna say that that's like gender bending. And you're like, that has absolutely nothing to do with gender because gender is not represented by styling the same shirt in two different ways.
I do think it's an interesting thing though, because it's like, if you're talking about like the actual sex body, there are differences that you need to like, for example, differences in sizing, and all of these things, and it's like, I feel like it's at least a good starting point for this, but really we need to start kind of destigmatizing this idea of what is menswear and what is womenswear.
That's the great thing about Telfar, is that he says he only looks at shape or silhouette. He doesn't look at anything else. He literally just looks at the lines that you form.
And it's also brilliant because what it helps them to do is like diversify the shop floor. And it's like the shop floor can be a really hostile place for trans people, for people, do you know what I mean? Like people that are gender non-conforming. Because it's like, you obviously, if you have to go into one section or the other, you're gonna face hostility. And this whole thing about gender changing rooms, like I feel like...
Oh my God, that's such a huge thing. Even now, like you can't go into like, if an H&M is just a women's H&M, I'd like, with my pinstripe trousers. No, and I genuinely tried to go like into, and they're like, sorry, like you can't. And I was like, okay, so where should I try these trousers on if I want to buy? Are you just telling me that I cannot try this on in this store?
Right.
And you're like, oh, let me just check with my manager. And then I got to go, like, but like, it's just so weird.
So weird.
But then
So many layers.
I really want to go, like, in terms of gender and representation of like, oh, gender bending. The worst example
We're naming
was that
and shaming now, are we?
no,
The shade is real.
horrible Vogue cover with Zayn and Gigi Hadid, which was the most...
What was that? How was that gender bending?
That was...
I wasn't ready for that.
Like, no, that was such a problem because that was like that whole story was about, oh, look how we, like, and she was like, oh yeah, the interview was about them like wearing each other's clothes.
So you had to issue like a full apology for it as well.
Yeah, because he was like,
I'm not saying
oh
that.
my God, guys. He
We
was
need
like,
to
oh
pull this
yeah,
out.
babe, it's like when I take your t-shirt and then I wear it with jeans or something. And I was just like,
Don't, like boyfriend jeans.
Here we are.
Oh, don't.
Here we go.
and they were wearing like the same Prada suit, or she's like, because
come
this
on.
is gender bending because like he's wearing a floral jacket and she's wearing a
Oh my
black jacket.
gosh.
Oh my God, breaking
Gender
the
bending.
It's all right, it's okay.
I know, I'm like
I
so
can see you're passionate.
No, this is something that I was
so hurt.
so angry at. No, I was so angry at
I've
this
never
because
seen
it's
this.
like putting gender into like wearing a t-shirt with like a certain jacket.
Tell you what would be great is if they were both there in Telfar with the Telfar buckle in exactly the same.
There we go.
Can I
There
also
we
just say
go.
that, because I feel like conversations around like gender bending, they're so kind of like focused on like thin bodies, and thin bodies that kind of like flat chested or whatever. Like it leads on quite well to kind of creating an ambiguous gendered silhouette. But it's like fat bodies are excluded like so often from conversations about androgyny.
Oh my God.
And it's like, I think that's kind of exciting because I think that's where the conversation's opening up now.
It can lead to something.
Could definitely
so
be more.
right. People tend to look at this kind of like 70s skinny boy, or it's
Like
easy for a skinny
androgyny.
girl to suddenly look like a boy or whatever.
But also like gender, we have to still remember that gender in clothing, like how you identify in terms of gender, has nothing to do with how you dress. It doesn't have to do with how you dress. So
could be
just because
non-binary,
they're
it's
wearing
masculine.
exactly, like there's not like that's the main problem. What like fashion does to gender, it boils it down to like what you dress. So because I'm wearing a dress, I identify as a non-binary person or as a woman. But like I can also be a man in a dress and call myself a man, and I can also be a man dressed in a pantsuit and say I'm a woman if I want to be that. And that's the thing with like gender where it's like so problematic when it comes to fashion. That's what Telfar does, which is like whatever, like do be what you want to be. You do you. Like that's it.
That's that thing, like that whole like non-binary fashion story. I feel like it just conflates gender identity with gender presentation. And like they're two such radically different things.
Yeah.
Like we need to be completely aware of that. And like
Do you think the CFDA just creating this non-binary thing is their way of just being like, we don't know what we're doing?
It literally said buzzy brands, like buzzy. And it's like, it's that whole language of like the trend.
I feel like they're just looping together all the New York brands that people like us are interested in.
What were you going to say, Essie?
I was just saying, like, it's kind of funny, like, touching on your point. Like, my mum once, I was in Canada with her, and I was, like, freezing, I need some boots. So I was like, okay, let me just buy some Timberlands, right? So I'm like, I'm a size 8, so I'm like a big fitted woman. So I'm like, okay, so I was like, okay, I'll get a woman's whatever Timberland boot, right? And they're like, oh, we've run out of like 8s, we only have 7s. I was like, okay, cool, can I get a men's 8? And my mom was like, what? A men's 8? No way, you're not wearing a men's boot. Like, she was adamant,
really?
like. And it was like this, I was just so shocked. I was just like, it's the same boot. It's just the men's. Like, it's a wider foot. I've got wide feet. Like, it's just,
Sometimes
and it's
they
crazy.
don't even bring out good shoes in women's wear, so you have to
That's what
shop.
I'm saying. So I was so confused. I was like, wow, like gender is really.
Yeah, major the other way
It just kind of, I just found it really odd, like how like traditional she had become with that. And I was just like, wow, like I didn't know like gender really like it has so many layers to it. I just.
Like it permeated that.
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, like. It's really strict. like this is really too much.
The way we're talking is such a contemporary way of being able to look at it. Like, some people just cannot even process, differing opinions or the ways that is. Sometimes for certain people, I think it is just very black and white, the way that gender's looked at. But this conversation that's being had, it's relevant and it's happening.
I also want to flag that this is very like Western way of looking at things. Certainly in like Asia, like Yoji does skirts and has done for a while, and in Korea, it's totally vibe for a guy to dress more feminine and wear makeup, and in fact, it's encouraged.
I mean, in like so many different cultures, you see like something that we would call a dress. Like, if you think about like Morocco or like even Middle East, and like men wearing like what we would call dresses, like it's in their national dress to be like wear a long top or like kind of, and for us that we're like, ooh, that's a dress. And that's like, there is a very Western idea of it, and it's just like it needs more people that are doing something like without necessarily labeling them, oh, they're agender or they're non-binary. They're just doing their own thing and like celebrating whatever they want to celebrate.
Exactly.
Taking it back to Telfar a little bit, what do we want to see next? He's got all this kashish. He's just done an amazing concert/show. What do we want? What do we want to see more of? What do we want to produce? What do you want to shop? Tell me everything.
I'm so intrigued by this Michael Kors aspirations. Like, I think what we'd want to see is like your everyday woman who walks down the street with a Michael Kors slung around her elbow with a Telfar.
The Telfar,
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I think that would tick all the boxes for him.
I really want to be able to like buy it somewhere around, somewhere next to me. I mean, hopefully when like to have the money to buy it. It's a personal one. But also send cash. Send cash.
Dino's Telfar.
Dino's Telfar fun. No, but I would love to be able to see it, like in your department stores and. Not in just a specialist kind of like LNCC. Like it would be cool to see it on a shop floor of Selfridges, of like Browns, of different places.
But not in a niche way.
No. Like and it will be for me. Like I would want like. Probably I wouldn't be happy with the solution, but it would be interesting to see where they're going to place it. Like whether they're going to place it because like Helmut Lang. As he showed like Shane's few shows, like or few collections actually. He in the end, like those clothes are still on a men's and a women's page, and they're very different because it's at the end of the day decided by the buy of this show. So I would really be interested into seeing like, okay, who buys this? Which pieces they buy, like, and what are they like kind of merchandising it at? Are they going to merchandise these shirts the same as like, for example, Martine Rose? Or are they going to be actually like, oh, like let's put it on a girl and do that?
It's a bit like the art school issue in that they get bought as women's wear in some departments and bought as men's wear in others. What would you two like to see more of, less of?
I'd like to see him like, I don't know, like collaboration with George or something. I don't know, I just want to see the random, like, I just feel like...
That's what we're calling you.
Yeah. Like, I'd love to see like a massive, like, those horrible, like big Michael Kors, like sections in Selfridges. I'd love to see like a Telfar version.
Takeover.
Yeah, maybe like an installation.
Yeah,
where it's
that
not, like,
nude pic in the background.
Yeah, just like as like the face. Like, it would be amazing to see those kind of like contrasts.
It'd be nice to see another show, like another art show, like he showed at the Berlin Biennale.
Oh,
nice
yeah.
to see something again. You know, he's doing this big exhibition in Milan, which is where this naked pick is. Maybe go see that.
Amazing.
I would love him to like keep pursuing curved runways and keep trying to kind of like redefine the way that we see menswear and womenswear and trying to dissolve that. I want him to keep doing the things like the White Castle collaboration. I would like to see him maybe kind of incorporate like a comm business strategy, where it's like he makes like the accessories and diffusion lines his big thing, so he can keep doing weird things on the runway. Start like keep doing these like deconstructed jackets with like the pelts hanging off, and like I would like to see him go super commercial, but be able to have that creative control over his mainline.
I think that's like he has like almost an upper hand on comm because his creative stuff, it's not avant-garde, it's still like easily
like accessible,
and like kind of you want it to be available. It doesn't seem like something that you want to just stand and look at. Even though it's great to do that, it's really like appealing as a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a guy in a suit just rocking like a Telfar belt instead of a Gucci one. You know what I mean? It'd just be fun. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, well, that's quite the tick list for you, Telfar, if you're watching. But I think we should give him a round of applause.
Yeah.